Hello, I would like to explain something that was really tricky for me to figure out in Fabric, the audio solution for Unity. Um, Basically, I wanted a way to have my music play continuously in a game, even if the scene reloaded. And there are some certain ways that the Fabric guys, Tasman Audio, explains to do it, but it's very, very, very vague, and it's kind of. I tried to use their Springboard; it didn't really work that well. So I finally figured out a solution, and I'm gonna explain it. It's pretty convoluted, and it's gonna take me a little while to explain. So I'm sorry if I get a little rambly, but I will do my best. I have a made project with it, but I'm gonna try to create a new one for you. So let's do Fabric loop music. Okay. Now let's take this step by step. The first thing I'm gonna do is let's just create a game scene. So just hit Command S or Control S for save scene, and let's call it game scene. Go to game object, create other cube. Now we have a cube here. Let's bring it up, rotate it a bit, add a directional light, and then add a rigid body. Oh, not to the light. And now we have a playable game. Okay. Now I'm going to create little game scene manager. So create a script here, game scene manager. Create an object called game scene manager. Drag it on once it's done compiling. Double click it. And all I want to do here is make it so that when I press enter, it'll reload my game. So in update, do if input get key. This is C sharp, by the way. Get key down, key code, return, application load level game scene. Now that will not work yet because we haven't added the game scene to the settings yet. So go to the build settings by hitting Command or Control B and drag it in. Now when I push start, I can hit enter and it'll keep restarting my game. Okay, next step. We're going to create Fabric because Fabric, or actually I forgot, we didn't import Fabric. So go into wherever you downloaded it and double click it. Okay, import Fabric. Now, this is where it gets tricky. If I create Fabric in my game scene, the problem with that is that it will only exist in my game scene. And I can then make it so that it lasts in other scenes if I start in my game scene, but what if I don't want to start in my game scene? So what we're going to have to do is create a separate setup scene that will load no matter what. And that if the fabric scene isn't found, or if the fabric manager isn't found, it'll automatically load it. So let's create a new scene. So Command N, save as setup scene. Now I have the old project on my laptop over here, so I'm going to be checking that quickly. Now in our setup scene, we don't need the camera. We're going to need a fabric object. So let's fabric manager, and then add an event manager too. And I'm going to add in, oh, I forgot to add in my audio file. So okay, I'm adding in my audio file. I had to quickly go find it. Let's make it a two-dimensional sound. Apply. That way it won't, it'll sound the same volume no matter where you are. Okay, now in our Fabric Manager, we're going to need to set an event. So let's have our event be called Play Song. Hit Add. You can see it down here in the event list. So when that event Play Song is called, the song will play, obviously, but there's no song to play, so we need to create a group. So you can go Game Object, Create Empty Child, or Option Shift N. and name that music. So all of our music will be housed here. So let's add a group component to this. That way, if we have like 80 songs, we can still control the volume of all of them at the same time. Make a child underneath that and call it song. And let's add an audio component here. Add your sound clip to the audio component. Now, I don't know what this is about. It's some stupid bug with Fabric, something to do with the format of the song. I'm not sure, but ignore it. Doesn't matter. Um, okay, so now we have this set up, and we also need one more thing with the song. We need it to listen for the play song trigger. So if something sends play song to Fabric, this song will start playing. I also need to do one more thing, and that is I want to set stealing mode to none. Oh yeah, and loop. With all of these things, this song will continuously loop, and also if the song is playing and this play song trigger goes off again, it won't be stolen. The old version of the song that's playing won't be stolen from. It'll just keep playing, and the new version will just get ignored. That's why this none is important here. Okay, now make sure Fabric Manager has don't destroy unload. That way, once it's loaded, it'll just last forever. Let's go back to our game scene, and now what I want to happen is if if the Fabric object isn't found, I want it to load our setup scene. So in our game scene manager, or actually, no, let's do this separately. Uh, Now, I could put it in the game scene manager that if the Fabric object isn't found, just load it. But the problem with that is, what if I want it to happen in the menu scene? What if I start the game on the menu scene and it doesn't have the Fabric manager? It just won't be there. I want a separate object that I can put in anywhere. So create a new script called Fabric Check, and just place the Fabric Check on the game scene manager. In the Fabric Check, you're going to try to find it. So let's do using now Fabric Manager. We're going to see if there's a Fabric Manager. Game object, find object of type, Fabric Manager. If the Fabric Manager is null, then we need to load the setup scene. So now I could go application load level setup scene, but the problem with that is we need to tell the setup scene to reload our current scene. So we're going to have to write some code for this. So let's go back to the setup scene, and we're going to need to create a setup scene manager. Create an object called setup scene manager. Add this to it. Now in the setup scene manager, we need to add a variable called public static string scene to load. This is what we're going to fill in with whatever scene we came from. Because a setup scene manager is it's not really a scene in the game. It's just a quick setup scene. So immediately after loading, we're going to quit it. So in start, just say application load level scene to load. So whatever this is, after the setup scene is ready, it'll automatically go back to whatever scene it came from. So in the Fabric Check, go scene setup scene manager, and because it's static, we can just go scene to load equals setup. Scene to load. We want it to load whatever level the Fabric Check is contained in. So we're going to go application loaded level. That way, it sets the setup scene to load whatever scene it's coming from. And then we go application load level setup scene. So it loads the setup scene, And then in the setup scene in the manager, it goes load level, scene to load, and scene to load was set in the last thing. So let's see if that worked. Um, there's an error here. Let's build it and see what it is. Setup scene. Oh, not loaded level. Loaded level name. Okay. Now, and you could actually do this as an int. Both of these as an int too. String is just the way I did it. Now, in the game scene, let's check this. So let's go to the game scene here, and what should happen is when I press start, it should look for the fabric manager, not find it. Quickly go to the scene setup scene, and then go back to the game scene. So let's see if that works. Nope. The reason is I didn't put the setup scene in the build settings. Let's try this again. All right, you saw that little flicker. That means it quickly went in and out. And now, because fabric is set to donuts, destroy, and load, we now have it in our game scene. And the great thing about having this fabric check separately is that no matter what scene you start on, if there's no fabric manager, it will quickly load the setup scene and go back. So let's just as a demonstration, and we're going to use this later anyway. So create a new scene, save it as menu scene, add it to the build settings, and in the menu scene I'm just going to change the camera color so that we can clearly see that it loaded. Now if I start, there's no fabric manager in the menu scene either, and I'm just going to drag the fabric check on the camera here. Now I push play, it does the same thing. There's now fabric in the menu scene. Okay, so we're getting closer here. Let's go back to the game, and we need to actually start playing our song. So I'm going to make it so that our game scene manager plays the song. So add a trigger, and I need to select play song, but the problem is there's no play song here. So the reason is because our fabric object is only in the setup scene when we're in editor mode. So let's drag this in here and make a prefab out of it. Go back to our game scene, temporarily drag in the fabric prefab, and now while this prefab is here, then I can go in here and set the trigger to play song and keep it on start so that when the game starts, it'll start the song. Then I can delete the fabric prefab again because I chose that, and you can see it's still play song, but it's just kind of stuck because the fabric prefab is gone. Now, if this works correctly, it should play the song when I start the game. Fantastic. Now, we still have a problem. Let me see what happens when I restart the game. Now, there's a weird thing there where it stops and starts and stops and starts, and I think that reason might be because of this add to queue. I'm still new to Fabric, so I'm guessing add to queue just has something that, like, even if start gets interrupted somehow, it'll still play it. So let's see what happens now. Good, so now it plays every time, but I don't want that to happen. I want it to, when I restart the game, the song to keep going. And the reason it doesn't keep going is because the object it's attached to is getting destroyed. And the object it's attached to is called Game Scene Manager. Now, there's a way around this, and what I could do is in the fabric or in the setup scene here, I could just make it so that let's see, I could add an event trigger here and choose play song. And because, or wait, not to that. I could add it to this. Trigger, play song. And because the fabric object isn't getting deleted, this song will keep playing. But the problem with that is that what if I don't want the fabric, or what if I don't want this song to play every time this setup scene is loaded? I only want this song to play when the game is loaded. So I need it to be strictly related to my game scene. So to fix this, we're going to go into our game scene manager, and um, in awake, don't destroy unload this game object. Now, this is going to work pretty well because now when this game scene manager is loaded, it will never be destroyed. So now when I press play, and when I press enter and repeat the game and start the game over, the song keeps going. But you can see there was a problem over here. It kept being cloned. And that is because the game scene manager is in our scene, so that when a new scene is created, a game scene manager from the old game is still there, and a new game scene is created every time. So it keeps duplicating. So what we're going to do is a static game scene manager instance on awake, set the instance, or no, not yet. On awake, if the instance is null, that means this is the first time it's been loaded. Set the instance to this, but if it's not null, then we're going to delete the new game scene. So destroy this game object, or not the game scene, but if it's not null, that means we delete this manager that was just created and just keep the old one. So let's see if that looks better. So you'll notice here no music is playing now, and the reason that is because the game scene is created before Fabric even exists. It tries to start the song, but it can't because there's no Fabric. It loads the setup scene, creates Fabric, comes back, and then starts the game. But the game scene manager that was created in the original game scene has not been destroyed because it's set to don't destroy unload. So one thing, the way we want to solve this, there are a couple of ways, but the way I did this is useful for a couple of reasons. Basically, if we load any other scene except for the game scene, I want to just delete this. So when this game is loaded, we're going to save the level num. And if you go into the build settings, you can see level num is 0, 1, or 2. Now, what I could do is just be like, oh, the game scene is 0. But the problem with that is that these might change order. So when the game scene is loaded, save the level num as application loaded level. Loaded level. And now if any other scene besides the game is loaded, then we want to delete this instance of the game manager. So we're going to go on level was loaded. This is automatically called by Unity when the level's loaded. So once the level's loaded, if level num doesn't equal loaded level, then destroy it. And also set the instance to null. This way, when it loads the setup scene, it'll destroy this, and then it'll be recreated. And again, there's other ways to do this, but this one is useful for a reason I'll say in the future. So let's see if this works. There we go. So it starts the game. It can't find the Fabric manager in the Fabric check, so it goes to the setup scene. When it goes to the setup scene, it deletes it deletes this whole object because on level was loaded happens to don't destroy unload objects. And once this is deleted, it goes back to the game scene, and then finally this is created again, and this time it plays the music. The other benefit to this on level was loaded being here is that when another scene is loaded, let's say let's say I have the menu loaded here, menu scene. When I hit escape, it will also stop the music because it finds out right here that it's not the same scene as the game scene. Let's do one more thing. In the menu scene, set the, let's do a menu scene manager. In the menu scene manager, I'm just going to make it so if I press enter, it loads the game scene. Um, and let's see if this works. So if I press play here, it loads the fabric. Press enter, loads the game scene. Now, this is all done. I can start in the menu scene and have no music, but when I go to the game scene, the music starts. I can repeat the game scene as many times as I like, but the music stays going. I can go back to the menu scene, the music stops. There's one other thing that you guys might be thinking that I could do for Fabric, and it's true. I could go to the setup scene here, go to my music and song, and set don't stop on destroy. And that's great because once the game scene manager is deleted, it'll keep going. But the problem with don't stop on destroy is it doesn't loop. So once the song ends, it's just done. So that's the problem with that. And that's all there is to it. It's crazy. Like I said, it's crazy convoluted. I spent all day trying to figure this out, and I know I've been rambling a ton. And this is a very unstructured tutorial because I'm still figuring it out myself. But hopefully, this can help some of you kind of figure out how to manage your music better in with Fabric because I could not find any tutorials out there. All right, thanks so much for watching. Definitely let me know if you find out a better way to do all this. Goodbye.